Hello everyone, back at it again in my little yellow kayak. I just launched the kayak. We've got a little bit of wind to deal with, and there's a lot of people fishing, so I have to be careful not to cross anybody's line that's fishing near the boat ramp. This is a designated trout pond, and in New Hampshire where I'm fishing today, these ponds open the fourth Saturday in April, and there's a lot of people looking to catch the first trout of the season. These ponds just open for fishing, really. It's the day after, I guess. So my first order of business is to get away from all these boats. I can count 1, 2, 3, 4 boats right in front of me, and there's more further out. Actually, there's 5 boats. Those are 2 kayaks, not 1. Yeah, so the first order of business is to get away from all these boats, try to find some fish on my own. And the second order of business is to try to find a spot with a little bit less wind, just so I can cast a little bit easier. Normally I like fishing in the wind, but there's a lot of people on the windy side. It's close to the boat ramp, and in this case I'd rather just get away from all that and avoid anybody crossing my line or me crossing theirs by accident, and it'll just be a little bit easier, I'll say, if I can find some space. I don't need a lot of space, but just a little bit of space away from everybody else. Alright, I found a little spot to fish in the lee. A little bit more sheltered from the wind here. And you can't see them on camera, but way to my right there's a tin boat with a family fishing anchored up, and they're having a good time fishing for trout. But since they're anchored up, they act as kind of like a blocker in football for me. So people aren't going to try to go through them. They're anchored up. They can't paddle through them. They can't troll through them. So by fishing, I don't know, 100, 200 feet away from them, we're both kind of protected from boats running through. And I got my first fish. That's a brook trout. What I'm trying to do on this trip is target 2-year-old brook trout. The state, again this is New Hampshire, stocks a lot of 9-inch brook trout. I mean, they stock thousands of them every year. And for a while, I wouldn't even fish for trout in New Hampshire, freshly stocked trout, because there's so many of them, they need, I don't know, another year to grow up. But what I found is, on the stocking website, they've updated it such that you can search for 2-year-old fish or 3-year-old fish that have been stocked. Or you can wait till those 1-year-old fish winter over, but you know, a lot of those fish get taken by anglers or cormorants or herons or eagles, ospreys, otters. You know, a lot of them don't make it the next year, except on very big lakes, and those have their own set of challenges like wind and waves and jet skis and everything else. So yeah, what I'm trying to do is fish through these 9-inch brook trout and get into a better class of fish, which is sometimes a challenge because the 9-inch brook trout will hit almost anything, but they're hard to hook because they have small mouths. And the gear that I'm fishing with, which is generally soft plastic panfish baits really, but I'm using them for trout. Here I was fishing with a Z-Man larvas. That's generally a very good bait for trout. I fish it in a natural color. It looks kind of like a dragonfly nymph. But I soon realized that most of these fish around me were brook trout, although I did get a couple rainbows later. But brook trout really like the color white, and so after a little bit I switched over to a white tube tipped with a real piece of worm. Over the years I noticed brook trout really like the color white, and they really like worms, and if you put those two things together into a white tube tipped with a piece of worm, well, they really like that. So before too long I switched over to the white tube. Alright, I tied on the white panfish tube, and I'm going to tip it with a piece of real trout worm. You need about an inch and a half piece of worm, and they could be trout worms, red worms, garden worms, compost worms, mealworms. Lots of different things will work, but some little piece of flavor on the end of that tube really helps a lot. The family in the tin boat left, so now I have a little bit more room to fish around this cove. I'm working my way along shore. I know it's kind of hard to see, but the fish are rising to flies, and I'm casting to rising fish and then fishing that tube in and around where they just rose. It's a little bit hard to see, but there was a fish that rose on camera in the wind there. And I cast right to him, and he ate it. That's a little better brook trout. Maybe a 2-year-old fish, which is what I'm after. If I can get him in the net. All right. Yeah, they're nice looking fish. Easy release with the single hook in the tube. And the GoPro died right around here, but that's what he looked like in the net. It's got kind of purplish blue spots. Nice looking fish. Just to compare, this is what the 1-year-old fish look like. They're about 9 inches long. And they don't pull too hard, and they're a little bit too small to eat. So, yeah, those are the ones I'm trying to fish around and fish through. So I kept making my way around the pond, and I came across this underwater rocky island shoal area that was marked with the black and white hazard buoy. And I had switched to a Berkeley power nymph because those little brook trout had shredded my white tube. And I ended up hooking something a little better. Or a little bigger anyway. Gave me a good fight. That's a rainbow trout. The rainbow, you know, it seemed full-sized, maybe 2 years old. If he'd sit still, I'd show him to you. Have to get the hook out first. There it is. All right, hold still, buddy. I'm going to let you go. Just sit still for the camera for 1 second. Yeah, they're feisty and slippery. And I'm trying to minimize my handling of them. I don't want to squeeze them too hard because I'm going to let him go. There he is. And off he goes. So I'm still by that rocky shoal underwater island thing. I don't know what to call it. And I'm fishing that Berkeley power nymph with short hops, but I'm really swimming it. I'm fishing it high in the water column. And I got another one to eat it, and this one was pulling some drag, which is better than the 9-inch brookies. The 9-inch brookies really don't pull any drag. I've only got 4-pound test on, although I'm used to fishing with 2-pound tests sometimes for trout. It's still relatively light line, so I got to make sure he doesn't pop me off. He's still not done. He saw the net and said, "No, thank you." I saw those nets at the hatchery. One more round and I think he'll be done. Just got to lean on him a little bit. Let the rod and the drag do most of the work. Come on, I almost had him on that one. I was leaning back trying to get him in the net. Lean back. He's still not done, but I'm going to scoop him up anyway as he goes crazy on the surface. So he's filling up the bottom of my net. That means he's decent sized trout, at least decent for here. I know this size trout wouldn't raise any eyebrows in the Great Lakes or the tributaries or Wisconsin Harbor or Colorado, but for here it was a decent sized fish in this little pond, and I was happy to catch it. And I'll show him to you if he would just hold still for a second. He's still full of it. Come on now. Hold still for the camera. There he is. Nice pink cheeks, pink sides. All right, I had a good afternoon on the water. Seemed like around dinner time a lot of people went home to eat dinner or pull the boat or get ready for tomorrow. And things really quieted down, but so did the fishing. I fished around a little bit more, but I couldn't get any more fish. And eventually I just headed for home. So thank you all for watching. I really appreciate it. I'll list all the gear in the video description. And I'll catch you on the next one. See ya!